believe that entrepreneurship is like quite possibly the single most positive impact on families, communities, when it's done right.
Your baggage steals you the opportunity to create something beautiful. Men are literally not having the skill set to like go up to a woman anymore. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Academy. It's your host, Kristen. And if you're new here, this is a school for your soul to grow and evolve. And today I'm super excited because you guys have heard me talk so much about Summit, which was a portal of an event that truly has quantum leaped me and changed my life. But the very first person that I met at Summit was Mike Cooch. So Mike Cooch, welcome to Alignment Academy.
Thank you. I'm so honored and lucky, fortunate to be the first person that you met. Yeah, you were the first person I met. It's amazing.
Yeah. So he lives in San Diego and, there's this big group chat and we're chatting and we're just like, I'm on this flight at 6 a.m. Anyone else? And you messaged me. And then I remember being like, gosh, I kind of wish I didn't say that because I'm just going to be like a zombie at 4 a.m. when I see this guy.
Right.
But it worked out. And I feel like you were such a beacon of light that day when I was like going into the unknown and you were just so nice and you handled the Uber and it was just great.
That's cool. Thank you. It's awesome. I feel it happened for a reason.
It definitely did. You are a lot of things, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you have such an impressive background and have done so much in the world. And I'm so excited to learn from you. But can you share with our audience who you are, what you've accomplished so far, and just like the things that you're proud of?
I will do my best. Yes. As we've discussed, yes, a serial entrepreneur. And I got that way through kind of a combination of a family member that for the first time in my life, I had seen somebody who I felt like had freedom to control their day and their destiny. And I grew up in an army family, where your dad goes to where he's supposed to go all the time. And that like so captivated me that you could have that kind of freedom in life that it just like kind of tweaked something in my mind. I was like, whatever that is, I think I need to do that. I didn't even really know what it was, but that kind of kicked off this at least just desire, which then pulled me into Silicon Valley. I was during the first .com boom when things were kind of going crazy there. And it was just an energy. And I was just like, I want to be a part of that energy. And I just kind of followed that from an entrepreneurial perspective. And that has resulted in, I've started a number of different businesses, some of them more successful than others, some of them outright flops, but it's all been a fun adventure and been very, very focused on being a lifestyle entrepreneur and really just trying to create that freedom through what I'm doing with my businesses. Also a father of 3 amazing girls that I love.
Girl dad.
Yes, girl dad all the way. One of the things I've done that's just kind of weird and out there, but I, helped produce a Hollywood movie and
Wow.
do all the work involved in creating that and bringing it to theaters and stuff like that. So that's just a fun kind of adventure that being an entrepreneur has allowed me to go on. As we were just talking about a little bit, I think going through a transition. I think a lot of us are going through a transition. Maybe the world is going through a transition to exploring what's next. And I've had that label of entrepreneur on me for a long time now. And it's one that I love and I'm proud of. But I also think that there's more coming and kind of, in that process. So when I introduce myself now, I think there's a little bit of fuzziness there as to exactly like what those labels are that I would describe myself as. And that's just part of the journey.
Yeah. And I think that, the journey of life is constantly shedding old identities and detaching from these ego labels that we give ourselves. And so I think that maybe that's what you're going through.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So I want to go back to your childhood. You said your dad was in the army.
Yeah.
Were you always wanting to be an entrepreneur or did you want to go into the army or like follow your father's footsteps at first?
Yeah, I always assumed I would go into the military, I would be a lawyer or I'd be a doctor.
That's what my parents told me to do too.
Yeah.
Literally the exact thing.
And my parents didn't tell me any of that. It's just the environment that I grew up in. And I just assumed almost all the men in my family history have been in the military. It was just an assumption for me that that's what I would do. And I didn't know a whole lot different. I mean, I grew up on army bases and that was the people that I saw. Interestingly, my dad talked me out of it because he thought when he went into the military, that was around the Vietnam era, but just prior to that, he thought that it was a good career choice, not just I'm going to war for my country, but he thought it was a good career choice, as in there was resources there, you could get training there, you could get education, things like that. And at about the time that I was going through college, he didn't believe that anymore, and there was major cutbacks going on, and he was like, what are you going to do in the military? And I was like, I don't know. I just thought that's what I would do.
Totally.
And so he had some good talks with me and talked me out of it. But when I was a teenager, I had my first run-in with an entrepreneur, which was my aunt had married this gentleman who I went and visited them in San Francisco. And I remember it was just like this moment that just really stuck with me because it was like a Tuesday. It was like a Tuesday at like 10 in the morning. And he was just kind of like, well, what are you up to today? And I was like, I don't know. We're just here visiting and I don't really have an agenda. He's like, well, do you want to go to the Giants game? Baseball game. And I was just like, yeah, right. When is it? And he's like, it starts in like, 2 hours or 3 hours or something. And I was like, what do you mean? It's Tuesday. You're a grown man. Like you can't just, you have to go to work, right? You can't just go to a Giants game. And he's like, no. He's like, yeah, I'll just skip out and let's just go to the Giants game. And it just like, it was so,
your brain.
Yeah, it was so foreign to me that he could just make that decision on the fly like that. That I was just like, what is it that you do? And he said, I'm an entrepreneur. And I was like, I have no idea what that is. And he was really cool because he actually invested in me. He bought me a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. He explained to me what being an entrepreneur meant, and how he was approaching, his career and stuff like that. And yeah, it was just a real eye-opening moment for me. And I realized, I think, a young man at that age, there was a lot of attraction to just the idea of money and making a lot of money. But it was the freedom that he had that just seemed really intoxicating to me. And that kind of led me down that path.
Wow. So did you make a decision after that, like a firm decision, like I want to be an entrepreneur?
No, not a firm decision. That was something that still just kind of evolved over I think I was like 15 when that happened. Went to college. I actually started as a chemical engineer, got more interested in business than when I was at school, and just kind of followed it from there. And then by the time I was graduating from undergraduate, I thought I knew that I couldn't work for anybody else. I still went and got a job right after school because that was the right thing to do and get the salary and get the benefits and all of that. But it was in a very entrepreneurial situation. And then I only lasted there like maybe a year and then hightailed it to Silicon Valley.
Wow.
Because I was just so drawn to that. So.
Yeah. And you've started and exited multiple companies. Yeah.
Yeah. Started and successfully exited one. Okay. Just to be clear. Yeah.
That's still impressive. One thing that you mentioned is that you're like a lifestyle entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What do you think is the alternative and why are you putting so much emphasis on that?
Yeah. So the alternative, I think, is what Silicon Valley was really all about when I was there at the time, which was you were trying to just raise as much capital, get as big as you could, make the biggest impact that you could, even if that meant kind of sacrificing everything about your life and your personal situation just to get the biggest return for investors. Ideally, at the time, that meant going public. I kind of threw myself, at least to some degree, into that game for a little bit, and I hated it. I hated everything about it. It felt very artificial and forced to me. The money upside to me was just not that important, I realized. It didn't move the needle for me. Versus then what it evolved into was that I realized I just wanted to start businesses that lit me up and I felt like had an integration, a natural integration with me, what was important to me, how I wanted to live, and using the business as a vehicle to be able to make that possible.
Wow.
And so to me, that's what a lifestyle entrepreneur is. I'm not necessarily going for the biggest growth, not necessarily going for the most profits. It's really just what's important to me personally and being a vehicle for pursuing that.
I've always said that too about myself. Is like I I call it like a heart-centered entrepreneur. You know, it's like from your heart. It's not just for profit, because that's running a different type of business. You know, if I'm only trying to make a sale all the time, then I'm not really doing what's best for the customer always. I just am trying to make more money. But it does make a difference. And I think that ultimately it's these small moments over time of these decisions that you have to make that actually create a lot of fulfillment or unfulfillment in the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, I could probably stay at home and make more money, but if I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur, like you say, or I'm a heart-centered entrepreneur, like, I'm doing it because I value what I value, and I'm actually going to value the relationships I'm building to go on vacation for 2 weeks or do whatever I want.
And I think that I mean, it's awesome. You're maybe just a few years younger than me. And so things have changed. Yeah, things have changed just a little bit. I would say the first dozen years or so that I was doing this lifestyle entrepreneurship thing, it was not like now it's very popular and accepted and common that that's how you would build a business, not only outside of Silicon Valley, but in Silicon Valley. I mean, venture capital investors now oftentimes have a hard time because entrepreneurs don't want their money, and they're like, no, I can just bootstrap a thing and be fine and have a great life.
Yeah.
For a good long time, that was not the case. Like, it was all about money. It was all, Wall Street and IPOs and, kind of that original kind of cutthroat, I think, vision of business where you were supposed to try and extract every bit of margin you could out of every situation. I think it's so cool now. And so beyond cool, I think it's really, really, really fundamentally important that it has evolved into a different vision for most people, because the odds that you're going to build something that goes public and all that are terrible anyway. Terrible. So it's great for venture capitalists because they have a huge pool of money and they can divide it up between 200 different investments, and just 1 or 2 or 3 hit, and they make so much returns that the rest can die, and the venture capitalists don't really care. But that's a lot of people and a lot of families and a lot of homes and all that don't make that leap, versus I believe that entrepreneurship is like quite possibly the single most positive impact on families, communities, when it's done right, because it creates a sense of accountability and ownership. Again, that integration with what's important to you that I think very few things could possibly do so well. So I think it's awesome. Like, I love seeing, you and your business and other friends that I have that are doing more lifestyle businesses. It's awesome. It's like you get to see people actually pursue what's important to them and what really turns them on, versus just, I'm doing a thing because it makes me money.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people in my world, on my Instagram, even my clients, where they want to be entrepreneurs and lifestyle entrepreneurs. But when the going gets tough, they quit, or they are not willing to take the big risk. And I really want your masculine perspective, because this is only something that I can go. I'm a pretty masculine energy person, but like, what is your advice for someone who it's been hard? Like, they've tried to start their business and it hasn't really worked.
Yeah. I mean, I think one is like, you've got to have a vision that is compelling enough to you that hard doesn't matter. So my very first business, we had grown it to, nothing substantial. It felt substantial. It felt like it was getting substantial to me at that point, because I had never had 2 nickels to rub together. But there was 4 of us that started it. 2 of us were in Southern California working for some clients. The other 2 in Northern California. Those 2 that were up in Northern California went in and emptied our bank account and left.
Oh my goodness.
And and it was like the most shocking, devastating. I was just about to get married, like literally like a month and a half or so from getting married. And I had every penny tied up in that business.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm super grateful to that first business partner that I had then, the one that was still with me in that business, because I had at that point, I had assumed, well, we just have to like declare bankruptcy and just go get jobs. Like, that was the first reaction of my brain, was like, oh, I just have to do that. And he was like, I'm not doing that. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm so underwater that nothing could fix how underwater I am other than being successful at this business.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh, damn.
That is decisive.
Yeah, it was decisive. And so we decided to call ourselves La Cucarachas, because cockroaches survived nuclear war and everything. And it just became our mindset that we were just like, we are just not going to go away. And literally, my fiance, and I moved in with him and his wife, and we ate like noodles every day and every night, and we worked from his dining room table, and we just worked our faces off until we got ourselves out of that hole. That mindset, I think to some extent, you just have to have that mindset that no matter how hard things get, you're going to get through them, and that there's always a way to get through them. I listened to your recent podcast on manifesting. Was it quantum?
Yeah.
So you talked about such an important concept in that there's this different version of you later on that has now gone through something, now has a different kind of wisdom to them and awareness of solutions and things that you didn't have before. And I've had similar experiences multiple times where I had like these big, like eye-opening, like, oh, I'm a different person now. And if I had known that 5 years ago, I could have handled that situation so easily. But now I realize, well, anybody who's going through that situation, there's a solution. They just need to talk to the right person or get the right information. Like, if your business is that far underwater, there are entire careers made, turnaround artists, that all they do is take businesses that are in that terrible of a situation and turn them around and make a ton of money doing it. And so it's like,
wow,
okay, there's somebody out here that sees this as an opportunity. And how would I shift my mindset to see it as an opportunity instead? That can be really hard to do, of course, when you're going through it. But if you can separate from that emotion a little bit and just look at the situation a little more analytically, there's a way to get through it. And you just have to have that mindset that you're going to get through it.
And that's why mindset is actually everything.
Everything.
You know, I just got back, I was telling you before we started, I got back from this NLP training, and it's all about kind of like the lens of reality we look from. And one of the things that they just like nail in your brain every single day, 1,000,000 times, is reality is an illusion. Reality is an illusion. It's all your frame. You're only getting, you know, you at any moment, there's 2 million bits of reality that can be kind of filtered through,
right.
And you are only filtering 126.
Right.
And so it's like, what 126 are you filtering?
Yeah.
And like the fact that you even said, you know, my partner looked at it as an opportunity and then I did, right? Like that's just a mindset. Somebody else could easily just be like, all right, I'm done. Like this is the end. God is clearly telling me to go get a corporate job, right? We make meaning out of things that don't mean things.
Right.
And then we call it fate.
Right.
So it's like, what fate are you going to actually choose versus like letting life choose for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to entrepreneurship specifically, and going back to those people that you're talking about that maybe are struggling to get started and take the risk or get through a tough situation, to me, what's always been helpful is to just imagine the worst possible downside and get comfortable with that. Just like soak in it and go, okay, if everything goes to shit.
Yep.
If nothing works out in this situation, everything goes to shit. How's that going to be? What am I going to do? How am I going to get through it?
Accept it.
Accept it. Just completely accept it. And the reality is, one, whatever you're envisioning there is probably not even that bad. Like we're so fortunate. I mean, like look where we are, right? And we have an incredible, whatever you think of the pros and cons of our country, we have an incredible economy and system and stuff like that to generally be able to support you more than most places around the world.
Yep.
Most people have at least some degree of family and friends that they can lean on when they need to. It's almost never like that
bad. It's worse in your head.
It's worse in your head. And so if you can get comfortable with that worst case scenario, and then you realize, okay, it's probably never even going to get nearly that bad, but you just accept it and you just kind of like let it percolate and just be like, okay, I'm there. Like get there in your mind, in your body, and be comfortable with that, and then go. Because then it's kind of like all upside. It's like, all right, I was already in the bad spot. I already got that kind of accounted for. And then just go and do everything, of course. And then, of course, do everything you possibly can to prevent from getting to that spot in reality.
I love that you brought this up because this is actually a process I use for myself. Like, I'm not kidding, all the fucking time. And I call it worst case scenario work. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's literally you just really deep diving and like going there. And what I find, and I want everyone to stick with me, is like, okay, so I do this with my clients with actually not that deep things. They're like, well, like, I don't want to get judged if I'm making a video. But like, I make them go there and I'm like, okay, so what happens if you make a video and your friends judge you? And they're like, well, then they send it in a group text. And I'm like, okay, what happens after that? And they're like, well, then they make fun of me and I feel bad. And I'm like, okay, what happens? Like, we go there. Okay, what happens after that? And they're like, well, nothing.
Yeah.
I probably will just need to self-soothe and get over it. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, nothing really bad that bad happens, you know? And so sometimes in our head, we're like, that can't fucking happen. But it's like when you really just go there and you're talking about much more deeper things, you know, you're like losing all your money. That's deeper. But no matter what it is, building a skill of getting comfortable with the most uncomfortable thing, it takes this power and it pulls it back and puts it in you. Yeah. You're like, now this thing doesn't have power over me. Yeah. So I'm good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In fact, I just wrote a thing in my journal just the other day that I have realized that there's all these kind of freedoms of entrepreneurs that I consider, right? The freedom to work where you want, when you want, with who you want, on things that matter to you. And then one that I've added recently in my mind because I realized how important it is, I think at every stage, which is the freedom to just not give a shit what other people think. Because something as little as, well, what if I post a video and somebody makes fun of me, can literally stop somebody from pursuing their dreams. And all that is that you're worried about what somebody else thinks of you. And
your baggage steals you the opportunity to create something beautiful.
And just the ability to not give a shit about what other people think. And that doesn't have to be taken in a negative way, like you're going to go out and just kind of stomp on people. That's not what I mean. But just to be able to operate by your own values and then realize, okay, if I'm operating by my values, however the cards fall is how the cards fall. Like, that's just it.
Yep.
Those people don't like it. That's out of my control. That freedom empowers you, I think, to do so much. And I think when you combine that with the practical side, like to me, I think on the practical side of like building a business, running business, I think something that I learned really well early on was to manage cash flow and keep overhead low. And I've heard some of the most famous investors and entrepreneurs talk about like success in a business is almost a matter of just timing, and timing means just survival. Like, can you stay in the game? And if you can manage cash flow well and you can keep your overhead low, you can almost certainly stay in the game.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of time. Like, you stay in the game, you keep hustling, you keep the right mindset, good things are going to happen at some point or another.
I love that. I love that mindset. So
if you've been waiting for my next retreat, it's officially here. If you haven't heard or you haven't listened to the podcast episode, I'm taking you to Peru with my soul sister and mentor, Daniela Gil. Last year, I went on Daniela's retreat and had the most life-changing experience. And I feel so called to host a retreat and bring you here with me. The Sacred Valley is the most perfect place to not only unwind, but reconnect with God and yourself. When you join us in Peru, we'll be having a Wachuma ceremony, drinking cacao every morning, hiking the Andes Mountains, learning how to cook Peruvian dishes, to mezcals, prayer ceremonies, Akashic workshops, intuition development workshops, and so much more. The dates are January 23 through 30. If you want to join me and Daniela in Peru, you can book a call with the link below.
One thing that I'm really passionate about teaching, basically from my own life, is that rock bottoms are portals to the greatest moments of your life if you choose them. Every single time I've had like a really earth-shattering rock bottom, like if I look back at that, you know, higher state of consciousness, I'm like, holy fuck, that was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it's a beautiful moment when you get to look back at them. I'm curious, when you look back at the moment where you lost all your money and you were about to get married, I don't know if you ever, you know, were able to have that wedding or not. On the other side of that, from this higher state of consciousness, was it a portal into a new version of you?
Oh, like, 100%. Absolutely. Just that acceptance, the la cucaracha, just the acceptance of, I can very vividly remember going through that experience and having a conversation with myself where I said, this is your opportunity to decide, are you an entrepreneur or are you not? And make that decision once. And then don't question it. Don't look back on it. Don't second guess yourself. Like, that's it. Because I was young. I didn't have a bunch of overhead. Like, if there was ever going to be a point where I was going to survive a situation like that, It was then.
Yeah.
And so if I was going to run back and get a job at that point, I was like, okay, Mike, you're not an entrepreneur. So just accept that and take that path if that's your path. But if you're going down this path, don't give yourself an out. Don't second guess it. Don't have the job lined up in the background that you could go to as a safety net. Like, don't do any of that. Just commit and go. And I think that, in anything important in your life, when you have that sense of commitment, it changes things. And that was definitely a moment for sure.
And I think that decisive energy makes the universe support you and move, like when you have this it's unconscious, but like this plan B in the background, you don't really try that hard. And I remember this business right here, there was no plan B.
Yeah.
Like I remember sitting on the floor of my ex-boyfriend's apartment and like crying and being like, this has to work.
That's awesome.
If it doesn't work, then I just want to, like, this is dark, but I was like, I just don't even want to be here because I can't go back to a corporate job.
Yeah.
And
wow,
I just made that decision, and it was COVID. Everyone was saying no one's going to buy life coaching at the time. Like, and I just made it. And I love what you say about make the decision once, because I think what most people do is they make the decision, but then they wobble.
They don't really make the decision. They make it like, right? The root of the word decide is to cut off, right? It's the cut off.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you cut off those other options, you've cut them off. If you haven't truly cut them off, you haven't truly decided. You maybe lean the majority of the way in that direction. But yeah, no, I remember, very similar feelings to you where, one of the things I've experienced, I'm sure you've experienced this at points too, is like people who are not entrepreneurs don't fully understand an entrepreneur. You can seem like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And I can remember several times with my wife, with now my now ex-wife, that there was just lots of conversations where I was just like, look, I'm sorry, you don't get it. I cannot do what you're asking. Like, you're asking me to make the sensible, stable, conservative, by probably almost every person's measure, smart decision. And I literally cannot do it. I cannot get my body and emotions and everything lined up to make that decision to go that way. I just can't. I think when you make a decision and you get that kind of integrated, then there's just no turning back.
Let me go back for a second. So I always talk about how fulfillment is following your heart instead of your head. And this is exactly what you're talking about right now. You're like, I couldn't follow my head. I couldn't do the logical thing. Like I had to follow my heart. Have you always been this connected to your heart and like making decisions from it? Because, from a few things that you said, we use different verbiage, which is fine and obvious because you're, different than me. But like, you are a lifestyle entrepreneur that's very heart-based, and you've always followed your heart instead of your head. Like, do you think this was something that was innate in you, or is it something that's developed, or what?
I think to some degree innate. I think to some degree developed. And also, I think it's important to note that it's not 100% me in all situations. There are aspects of my life where I wish I could have that clarity and that conviction at times when I know I haven't.
Yeah.
For whatever reason with entrepreneurship, that's been easier for me. Again, before I ever even knew what the word entrepreneurship was, I can remember being very young and having this real weird just burn in my stomach and almost like anxiety in my mind of like, I had to do something. I had to do something different. I had to be able to control my destiny. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even, like I said, I was young. Like I didn't even know what those things meant. And so I couldn't even articulate them, but I could feel them. It's almost like entrepreneurship found me because of all of that. And so I think in that regard, that has come easier than I think it does for a lot of people. Because it's interesting. Entrepreneurship is a real emotional journey.
Totally.
To be on. I think having a bias towards kind of feeling some of those feelings has like served me well to be able to go down that path.
We've talked about, one of the biggest pivotal moments on your business journey. How about your personal journey? Like, what has been the most thing that has developed your heart, that's developed your soul, that has been something that has really impacted your life, that maybe was one of the rock bottoms, but like the best thing too?
Yeah. So not a rock bottom, but having kids definitely, I realize now, and I realize to some degree then, like I did not there's a whole gear that I shifted into once I had kids that I did not have before I had kids, because now you're responsible for somebody else.
And girls.
And girls. And you're truly responsible for them. You're not responsible as in like I have employees,
right,
and those employees could go get another job. No, this is like a life that's depending on you.
Yeah.
That just kicked me into a whole nother gear for sure. And then, as you know, and I mentioned my now ex-wife going through a divorce. That was a very, very, very low point, very difficult experience. That was definitely a major, use the word portal. I mean, major turning point for me in, emotionally, psychologically, everything.
Can we go into that a little?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What was that experience? Like, you said it was a portal. What specifically felt hard about it? Like what? Yeah. Tell me a little bit more.
So when I mentioned before that some of the emotions and conviction around entrepreneurship have come easier for me than other areas of my life, I would say relationships, my early relationship with my wife, that's one area where that conviction wasn't as easy for me to trust and follow. I think if she was sitting here, which by the way, she's wonderful. We live a few minutes from each other. We have a great relationship, very amicable and everything. I think that she would tell you as well that we both knew years before we got divorced that our relationship was not working and probably not really ideally suited for each other as a married couple. And I think we both just had a hard time with acceptance and conviction around that. And that caused for me just a lot of internal turmoil. And it took me years to get through that. And in particular, the last few years of our marriage were just really, really rough on me emotionally. I've been very fortunate, I think, genetically, in that I don't have a bias towards any sort of depression or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that was the first time in my life I can remember, a couple of moments in that experience where I truly hit emotional rock bottom, where I got scared and I was like, oh shit, like I have to address this. I have to have the courage to address this because it's not going in the right direction. Yeah. I mean, that was a serious, now when I realize growth, it was a growth moment that oftentimes, or maybe all the time, I think growth has to come with some real challenges.
I have quite a few male listeners on Alignment Academy, actually. And every time I bring a man on, they always thank me because I typically choose these open-hearted men that are on the path and are doing their inner work. And so I'm wondering if you'd open up, like, what did your getting vulnerable and addressing it look like for you? If somebody is feeling this itch of unfulfillment, it doesn't even have to be in their relationship necessarily. It might be at their career, it might be in their relationship, it might be just they know something's off from their childhood and they need to do some healing. Like, what did you do? What advice would you have for them? And let's speak to them.
Man, yeah, so much. It's really interesting. I think it's a great and very important conversation. Once we got through the divorce, and as they said, we're amicable, and we got through the divorce so amicably that people that we knew saw us go through it and were like, wow, a divorce could be that way instead of all of the nastiness. We had a moderator. Whenever I had lawyers involved, we had a divorce mediator, right? Mediator. She had been doing that role for over 30 years. And she told us at the end of our divorce, she said that was the easiest one I've ever gone through. So I give my ex-wife, a tremendous amount of credit for that. I think that because of witnessing that, I ended up, I'm not joking you, I got to the point within a handful of months where I knew that somebody wanted to come and talk to me about getting a divorce, because it would be somebody that I hadn't heard from that much or whatever. And they would contact me and go, hey, do you think I could buy you lunch or something? And I was just like, sure. And I knew the conversation was that their marriage was bad and they were trying to figure out should they get a divorce and how to go about it. And I'm not kidding you. In the next year, I probably had 30 of those.
What?
Coffee dates, lunch dates, breakfast dates.
Oh gosh, that gives me chills.
Yeah, because so many people are in relationships that are not fulfilling to them and they don't know what to do and they feel stuck and they feel very conflicted about it and guilty about it. And I know those feelings because that was the way I felt. I felt guilty that I wasn't completely happy and fulfilled. And I felt wrong about that. The person I was with is a really good person, and a person that most men would say, hey, that's an amazing catch. But I wasn't fulfilled. And I knew I could feel that she wasn't either. Yeah, I felt very guilty about that, about trusting my own emotions and being able to fully acknowledge them and accept them and not feel like a failure because of that. First, I would say is to, if you really feel that way, it's probably talking to a therapist, somebody that you can talk to, that you can just express those feelings and understand that those feelings aren't wrong. They're legitimate feelings, and that you've got to try and listen to them and deal with them as healthily as you can. Like just keeping it all cooped up, which is what so many men do. They just keep it bottled up, and until, it literally or figuratively kills them, right?
Yeah.
They don't talk about it. They don't share their feelings with anybody. They don't go to therapists. They feel like it's weakness. I would just encourage people to listen to those feelings and find somebody that you can talk to express things, and just get some different perspectives on it than the stress and anxiety and pain and doubt that's probably in your mind and your heart at that time. I think that's the biggest, most important advice I would give. I think that the other thing, I've since ended up counseling a lot of friends who then have made the decision and they're going through divorce. And I just think it's so incredibly important during that process to do everything that you possibly can to keep things civil. Honor the person that you were married to, like that. If that's a mother of your children, and that is, no matter what, one of the most important people in your life's story. If you can just do everything possible to try and treat that person and that relationship that you had with honor and respect and dignity and generosity, and also at the same time being fair to yourself and making sure you're treating yourself well during that process. I just think that everything has the opportunity to end up much, much better than a lot of people envision with divorce. And unfortunately with the way a lot of divorces go, because people don't take that approach, and they take an approach of, there's this kind of attacking mindset. That was the person you were married to. That was the person that you love more than anybody else in the world. And now you're going into like this attack mode, out of these just raw emotions and feeling hurt and feeling betrayed or whatever it is, which I understand there's a natural desire to do that. But anything that you can do to avoid that, I think just makes all of this much better, much easier.
Yeah, relationships are really a mindfuck, because I was actually having this conversation with someone the other day. Like, they're so fucking weird. You are in this relationship with someone, you spend all day, every day with them. You talk to them all day, every day. Sometimes, you don't miss a day in 5-10 years. And then all of a sudden you break up and it's like, done. And it's just weird. It's just a weird thing. And I've thought so much about relationships in my lifetime. I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost romantic lovers, whatever it is. And something that I really had to do for myself is stop thinking that the end of relationships was a failure. Like, from a soul level, they're just contracts that we have to play out. And when they're done, they're complete. And it's not necessarily like a sad, yes, like humans have emotions, but like it doesn't have to be this feeling that we did something wrong. Sometimes it's just played its course. And I always believe that source, God, whatever you believe in, whoever is listening, it speaks to us through our feelings, our intuition. And something that you were saying was like, if you have that feeling inside of you, like, you got to listen to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that so many people want to, again, out logic their feelings inside of their heart and be like, well, I got married, it doesn't make sense, they're the mother of my children, blah, 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 blah. But like, that doesn't mean, life is inevitably going to just change,
evolve. And sometimes relationships don't evolve at the same pace or the same direction, or yeah. And I think, we have so much societal pressure around that whole concept. It's better to be married. It's better to be monogamous. It's better to stay in a marriage for life than to get a divorce, even if you're somewhat miserable, because that's a contract you made. If you're involved in certain churches, of course, there can be a lot of pressure on that and your religious beliefs and things like that. So there's all these things that can really, put a lot of pressure on it. And I would challenge, I think, one thing that you said, like, maybe, or maybe just the way that I heard it, but like, for me, I don't think that relationships have to end. I think that they do change.
Yeah, they
Like,
change form.
Yeah, because I don't have a significant ex in my life that I don't have a good, that I can't go and talk to and have a relationship. I mean, she's like, my ex-wife is the mother of my children.
Totally.
And I see her and talk to her all the time.
Yeah.
So we still have a relationship. It's changed. And part of that did come to an end, of course.
Yeah.
But I think, like what you said, it evolves and it changes. And yeah, sometimes that's reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ever wonder why you procrastinate, self-sabotage, you can't take action when you really want to, or even just feel massive doubt and imposter syndrome, odds are you have an inner child wound. If you're listening to this podcast, it's no surprise that inner work is my bread and butter. But the thing with doing inner work and inner child work specifically is that in order to do it effectively, you have to know the exact block that is holding you back. So I created a completely free quiz to help you find your biggest inner child block. Not only that, after you find your block, I'm going to give you the exact steps and tools that I would use to heal them, or I would give you if you were my client. There's no strings attached. I just want to help you heal. So if you want to take this free quiz, go down below and you'll find it linked.
What are your thoughts on like the current dating landscape with men?
Man, I think it's a really challenging time right now. And I think that we have made it, or are making it, more challenging on ourselves than is necessary.
Let's go into that.
Well, yeah, like I think that there's all kinds of dynamics at play. I think one, online dating, and I would put social media kind of in with that. I think just this creating whatever image you want to create online and having that being the impression that people see and how people think about that, manipulate that, whatever, I think just creates a lot of unhealthy dynamics. So I've spent zero time on the online dating apps. So I'm only speaking about this from what I have heard other people talk about. But like, it seems like it's just made it so easy to kind of just be disrespectful of people and, ghost them, whatever. Like, I think there's probably a bunch of just dynamics on there where I think that like disrespect, it's just like, if I post a YouTube video tomorrow, and there's going to be somebody commenting on it in a way that they would never comment. They would never make that comment to me in person, in my face.
Yeah.
But because there's the distance of the internet, they feel comfortable treating somebody that way. And I think that applies in the dating market as well. For men, the easy access to just unlimited amounts and variety of pornography has created some problems. And not just pornography, but like just other forms of entertainment, video games and things like that. Yeah. There's a lot of guys that just sit inside and just stare at a screen, and they can get that dopamine hit without the risk of going and actually meeting a woman. I think that is causing lots of challenges. This might get me in some trouble, but I think that the women's empowerment that has happened over the last, let's say, couple of decades, I think is awesome. That's awesome for women. Women should have access to everything, every opportunity that men do, and have all of the same opportunity for upside and everything like that. I think that in some cases, though, in the way that has, manifested in like the culture of some women and how they're then approaching men, I think has backfired.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of men out there that are also experiencing a lot of challenges right now in terms of job opportunities and what success as a man looks like anymore, just confusion around that.
Yeah.
Combined with now you've got these really strong women who are out there kicking ass, making more money than them, more educated than them. Nothing wrong with any of that. But I think that it's created some confusion. And I think, again, kind of some cultural dynamics between the sexes that has maybe backfired. It's worked against us a little bit.
I listened to this really interesting podcast episode on Diary of a CEO. I don't know if you know that podcast. And it was a male dating coach for men, and it was a woman dating coach for women. And they were having like a debate, and they were kind of talking about the issues that both men and women were having, and like just from both sides. And it was so interesting. And one of the things that the male was saying about men these days, and we'll get into the whole woman empowerment thing too, but just first and foremost, was that because of the dating apps and because of just social media, men are literally not having the skill set to like go up to a woman anymore.
For sure.
Like they just can't even approach people because like they'll just like, oh, I'll just do it on an app when I'm home. So then they're out at a bar or you're out at a restaurant where you would normally meet someone and you're just like, you think it's freaking weird if someone comes up to you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been interesting because even myself, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of both of those. I could date like people that are kind of in that social media world, or I could date above. And honestly, my experience in the last 6 months is that like I date above because those are the men that it's like not weird to get approached by,
Right.
or like they have that skill set to be like, hey, can I buy you dinner? Or can I buy you a drink? Whereas like men my age literally don't do that.
Yeah, that's wild. No, you're right. I think that the perceived risk of going and approaching somebody in person is so much higher for people who have grown up in that generation where they've known online since they can remember. Like all of this stuff was accessible to them their entire lives, and the perceived risk of going up to somebody in person and getting rejected is
they don't have the rejection muscle. That's what he was saying.
Totally.
It's like, and so he mentors men that are, boys that are turning into men, and he forces them to like go have 10 conversations, and they don't have to be romantic. It's like, go talk to that woman.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. So one of the biggest things that I learned at Summit, you might have seen me hanging out with, I'm sure you know who he is, Joe. Do you know who he is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he is actually a super networker, truly.
Yeah, really.
He is really good at networking, and he's been mentoring me a little bit and really teaching me how to actually just approach people in person, not even for like for all reasons, right? Like not just dating, not just business, like for all reasons. Since Summit, I have gotten really good at talking to people in person, and I cannot tell you how many business opportunities, how many clients, how many more like even romantic, and like it has opened my world up in a way that I cannot even fathom. Like truly, last night, for example, I was sitting at one of the nicer hotels in this area, and I was with a group of friends for my training, and there was this woman that was like sitting on the edge of like where we were sitting, and I just like went up to her and I had a conversation with her. Just like literally, I just look at every interaction now as an opportunity, which is something he told me.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, literally wants to come on my retreat and become my client. It's like, I would have never thought to go talk to this random woman.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in the mindset of like, opportunity is everywhere, I'm like, now just every time I'm in somewhere new and somewhere where like there's kind of, my ideal clientele, whether it's a romantic person or it's a client, I'm like, let me just go see who I can meet.
Yeah.
I don't know. If it's nothing, then it's a good conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe I have a new friend.
Yeah.
And I know that we were talking about men, but I think that skill, even for me, was so hard, and it's changed my life.
Yeah. Oh, totally. 100%. Yes. I think that young men right now, I don't know, it's interesting to see how like the role models are kind of evolving, like at least what you see online and kind of the conversations around this stuff. But I'm not sure that a lot of young men have had really good role models about how to develop themselves personally and how to think about some of those things. Like I need to develop the skill to be able to go and talk to somebody, and that's going to benefit for me. That's something that I should actually work on. I don't know that there's been a lot of role models to like make sure that they, know those things. Yeah, I think again, like just what they've grown up with and seen is social media, online dating. And I think where, again, some of this is like backfired on. It's like theoretically, online dating and social media should be incredibly powerful ways to connect with people. And it should be just, I heard somebody refer to it as like online introductions, not online dating. Like it should be just thought of as online introductions. It's just a way that you can just connect with more people more efficiently and with common interests and things like that. But so many people have gone just like all in on expecting that to be like the solution rather than just that first step. and thinking about, okay, what are all the other skills I need to develop, or how do I need to treat that person? And it's backfired. Like as an example, I've seen like there's like this, culture online of if a guy does go up and approach a woman and somebody's got it on video, and then the women will post it and shame him, like, look at him with this sorry attempt at going, and now he's got this thing out there publicly of him, like, he was legitimately trying to take that first step and trying to get through that risk. And now somebody's put online and blasting him. And no wonder then, they're afraid to go and do that, because that feels very raw, if they were already nervous about it in the first place. So yeah, it makes it, I think it makes it tough. It makes it real tough.
Oh my God, I have so much to say about this, but my number one thing is, let's talk about that art of rejection that we're talking about. I think that for me, when I really unpack, now that it's been, a month and a half maybe since Summit, and me being able to go up to people, it was actually just really getting super okay with rejection.
Yeah.
That's it. How do you, if I was a young man sitting in front of you right now, and you were talking to them and they were like, yeah, I am scared to approach girls, but I don't know how to build the skill.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give me?
I would personally, like, if I was going back and wanting to like really develop that skill for the first time, I think I would do my very best to try and find like a group of men that we were like in it together. Like, okay, we all suck at this. We're all scared as shit, and we're all going to just like root for each other. Yeah. And we're going to go out at night and we're going to take turns. Like, okay, you're up. Go and, say hi to somebody, go talk to somebody, like, it's your turn. We're rooting for you. Yeah. And if you could find a group of men that was like supportive to help you through that. And I think, there's some coaching programs out there, like you mentioned, that I think could be really helpful. I think for a lot of guys, they would really benefit from that, just having that kind of support group. Yep. Again, this is one of those things that men, I think, naturally don't do as well as women, is like come together and support each other. Yeah. And I know there are more and more men's groups being formed that I think that that's a really important opportunity. For sure. And then I think just reps. Even if you're just on your own, I think it's just reps. Like, you just got to just force yourself through it over and over again until you realize, oh, I'm still alive and breathing. It's kind of like that acceptance of the worst case scenario. Yep. And just getting through it.
It is reps, because so like I was pretty bad at it, and I actually had Joe, he came on my podcast and he taught his little formula of like, first you gotta, find an icebreaker, and like, like if we're, sitting at a coffee bar, it's like, what do you get here? Have you ever been here? Or like, I like your shoes. Where do you get them? Or literally anything. Yeah. And I think that for me, it's like so hard to have that first initial thing.
Same here. Yeah.
It's like, it's so hard. I'm like, God, I do want to talk to this person, but like, I don't.
What's the first thing that comes out of my mouth? Because I'm the same way. Like, once the first thing comes out of my mouth, it's easy. I've been talking to somebody forever.
I know.
But yeah, that first thing can feel so awkward. And I do think that's another thing I would add, is like finding somebody that you could study just some of those basic techniques to like, hey, if this is your tough spot, here's 10 ways to just open a conversation that feel natural, feel comfortable, don't feel overly, aggressive, whatever. Just feel like kind of in alignment to you and comfortable to you, that you can just practice so that you can have some tools to work with. I think for sure.
The other thing that I've been studying this a lot, like the art of networking and stuff. And the other thing is like something I've started to do is literally just say, hey.
Totally.
Hey. Yeah. And I learned that from Vanessa Van Edwards, who's like she's a communication expert or something like that. And she was just saying, like, building relationships, like sometimes you just need the hey. And I'll give you guys an example. So I was working out at my gym the other day, and there was this older guy, and I think I said hey, or I smiled at him or whatever. And it wasn't for like romantic things. But anyway, we ended up having a conversation. Yeah, he was hurt, and he ended up like asking me to put his weight up. And I was like, yeah, of course. So anyway, I kept on going. I kept on seeing him. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about this personally, so we'll talk about it right now. He is a part of EO in the area, and he's like, we started talking about my business, about his business, and he's like, I would love to get you into the EO Accelerator program. And then now he connected me to the EO Accelerator program, and like, I have a meeting next week. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, it all came from a fucking hey. Yeah. So now I feel like literally my world is just like opened up because like, I just say hey to everyone. I'm like, hi. That's awesome. Like, hello. Yeah. And if they don't say hi back, then like, okay.
What's the worst case scenario?
All right.
Didn't say hello back.
Like that's the worst case scenario and it's fine.
Yeah.
So it's really, sometimes you just got to say something. To even if you look like a weirdo, then okay, you look like a weirdo.
It's so funny because I think if I was like single and going out to approach women, I think hey would be 95% of, because anything that felt like a line or anything like that, that would feel so stupid to me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't possibly
You couldn't do it.
It would have to be just a hey and a smile.
Hey.
And hope that the other person responds with something, likewise back. Because again, after that, it's so much easier once that initial ice is broken.
Yeah. And if they don't say hey back, then like I've had a lot of people that don't say hey back and then you just are like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like keep walking.
Yeah.
And it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all good.
Worst case scenario. You got
Really worst case scenario. And I like to think too, like I can't really get rejected if they don't truly know me. You know? You don't know why somebody is
it's
not
100% them. I think I think that's one of the things to accept, right? And again, it's that part of like not caring what other people think. Like, what's that? A book I love, but I'm never sure if I get the name right. But I think it's Courage to Be Disliked. Have you ever read that?
Yeah, I have.
I love that book, and I love that saying that those are not your tasks. Like we've all got our tasks that are ours and our responsibility. And how somebody else responds to you
is nothing to do with you.
To do with you. If you're going up to a person and you are genuinely being open and being friendly and smiling and saying hey, and their response is something nasty or something whatever, that is them. That is not you. That is entirely them. Total. So like just those are not your tasks. Leave that with that person and move on.
And I will say, like, last thing on this is from a girl's perspective. So one of my rules is like, if someone comes up to me in person and they ask me out, I will almost always give them a shot, like at least a date.
Yeah.
Because, and actually that was one of my longest relationships. It was similar to that. He asked me out and I don't drink really a lot. And so he also didn't ask me out to go get a drink. And then I was like, I literally, this is what I said to my friends. I'm like, I know I don't like this guy, but I respect his effort.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give him a shot. And then I ended up being in a relationship with him for a long time. So it's like, you just never know. And I think that from a woman's perspective, like just to give the men even a little bit more encouragement, because there's so few men that do it nowadays, you can really set yourself apart from doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Going up to a girl and asking her to go out to dinner.
Yeah. I think that is one of the things that is really important for men to understand is that I think that you don't have to do a whole lot to elevate your potential to a much higher plane. Like there are so many people out there, there are so many men out there that are not thinking at all about how are they presenting themselves in the world and are not ambitious and are not, I can't remember who it was that I first heard say it, but they were like, I just say to a guy, like, would you be interested in you? Like, look at what you're presenting to the world. Are you in shape? Are you trying to, invest in your career? Are you trying to develop yourself personally?
Wow.
Are you bringing something to the table, really?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, if you're being honest, then you got work to do.
Totally.
And I think a lot of men are just not thinking that way. They're not thinking that, it's a competitive world and that they should do their best to present themselves in an attractive way, in the best possible way. So yeah, I think the guys who do think about that and pay attention to that and do invest in themselves, it's not real hard to get to some upper quartile or whatever it is pretty darn quickly.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Mike, my final question for you is about alignment. This is Alignment Academy, the podcast. What do you think is the biggest or your favorite thing that brings you into alignment? And what does alignment mean to you?
What alignment means to me, you said a phrase earlier, being on the path, and that's a phrase I use as well, which is interesting. I don't know where that came from for you. For me, it came from hearing somebody talk about it in the special forces, that being on the path was that you were doing all the things that you needed to do to be like ready, for battle and to be able to protect the people that you're working with and stuff like that. Being on the path, to me, I think is a lot about alignment. It's having a vision for who I want to be in some key areas of my life, and how would that person show up? What are the values that that person would have? What are the habits that that person would have? Being able to look at my days and go, okay, I'm generally on the path. My actions are reflecting that vision in that person. And then I think putting the time into like that vision evolves and changes. And so not rigidly sticking. I mean, we talked a little bit in this conversation about how I feel like I'm in this phase of transition. And so being able to like accept that can change and do the work necessary to find the clarity of what that vision is, when sometimes it's not that clear, so that you can get that alignment.
That's great. That's great. And what's one thing that brings you into alignment?
One thing that brings me into alignment,
or you feel aligned when you're doing it?
The first thought would be being in nature and exercising in nature. And then I think spending time and these things typically go hand in hand. I've always called it going to the mountaintop, and it's a habit that I've had for, 20 years, where I literally would go up in the mountains because I love the mountains. Yeah. And that's where I would do like my reflecting and journaling and goal setting and all of that, and being out in nature and exercising while I was, doing that, kind of incorporating all of that. Like that to me feels like, how I find alignment. Yeah. Like that combination of things, I think really works for me.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and opening up, giving
Absolutely. It was fun.
all these men advice. Like, I feel like everyone, if you loved this episode, I know I have a lot of women listeners too, send it to your partner, your brother, like whoever you feel like might need it. I always really love when I have beautiful men on here, because I think that there's not enough voices that are speaking to them. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. It was fun. Yeah.
All right, guys, we will see you in another episode. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.